Hello my friends and welcome. We have some interesting news. Donald Trump indeed asked Vladimir Putin not to strike Ukrainian energy infrastructure, capital city of Kyiv and other cities, preferably also Kyiv Oblast, to save the remains of Ukrainian energy infrastructure because the temperature again is up to drop to the record -25 or -30 degrees centigrade in the northern parts of Ukraine. But the bad thing about this ceasefire is that it is all temporary, for a single week only. I wonder why not 2 weeks, because it's the usual thing from Donald Trump to promise something for 2 weeks or in 2 weeks. But Donald Trump said about it himself, like 1 week only, for the most low temperature weather. But winter continues. You never know, maybe that's the cold mass again at the end of the February will go to Ukrainian territories, or maybe even in March. March is also very cold for Ukraine. Well, it's better than nothing after all. One more thing about this energy ceasefire, that it wasn't agreed with Ukraine at all. Yeah, there were some of the negotiations in Abu Dhabi, as you know, but no one signed anything and there were no verbal agreements on energy ceasefire. It's the long-term proposal from Ukrainian side, actually. Ukraine asked for the energy ceasefire since Donald Trump was elected. And Russians, well, they sometimes say yes, sometimes say no, but they continue to strike Ukrainian infrastructure. Yeah, there were the moments, then Ukraine stopped hitting Russian refineries, then energy ceasefire was agreed, actually. It was, I think, the last summer. But after Russia restarted the attacks, Ukraine also renewed the strikes on refineries. And since August, Russia lost so many refineries. They were damaged or either completely kaboomed. So Ukraine is very effective. And maybe that's the goal of Russia, because they suffer too much in the energy sector. Oil ports, refineries, even tankers were hit by Ukraine with the help of the drone boats and flying drones as well. But Ukraine is not obligated, from what I understood, not to hit Russian infrastructure. And by the time I'm recording this video, I have the report about air raids in Crimea. And according to the information from the Financial Times and one of the guys who spoke with the Ukrainian representatives, Ukrainian officials tell me they learned of this, the ceasefire from the Russian side, from Trump's remarks. So from general media information, as I also noticed that. No one has received a signal from Russia and they are not yet certain that a ceasefire is in place. So no one told Ukraine what to do. Ukraine this evening, this night, launched the drone strike on Russia as usual. What it means, that those negotiations between America, Russia and Ukraine, they're a total mess. And the White House is incompetent. Putin is doing usual stuff, but he wants to show that he wants to achieve the peace, yeah? And if he is asked directly by Donald Trump, okay, I will not hurt Ukraine for 1 week. You see, I'm a good boy. But for this time, Russia will accumulate resources, all of the drones they produce, and will hurt Ukraine even more, I guess. That's the outcome. Well, at least for a single week, Ukraine will have the opportunity to restore some of the energy grid facilities, substations, but for the full restoration, I guess Ukraine would need years after the war is over. Hopefully, it's going to be over soon, but I don't see the perspective, honestly. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel for the war to come to its end in a couple of years at least. And Russians, I think they will continue to strike Ukrainian facilities, infrastructure behind the front lines. Everywhere in Ukraine, it will be not safe, as usual, unfortunately, guys. It's better not to trust Russians, and as I mentioned Putin agreed on Trump's proposal just because it's tiny period of time. What is 1 week? Basically nothing. And there will be the winter in Ukraine still, and Russia may resume the strikes even with a higher force. So Putin shows to Donny that he is a good boy. So Trump may tell, oh, you see, Putin wants peace. He really is interested in peace, as well as the Russian propaganda would say. Yeah, and later on they will come up with the excuse of why they renewed those strikes on Ukraine, because Ukraine attacked something. And we know that Russian energy is also in trouble, for example, in Murmansk. But Ukraine is not involved into that Russian issue with energy in Murmansk. Those were not Ukrainian drones that hit facilities. No, it's just something happened in Russia with those power plants or power stations or substations. But in the future, they might say, oh, you see, it was Ukraine. Yeah, we had the issue, but they will blame Ukraine and they will resume their strikes on Ukraine. I'm sure about it, guys. Russia is just like that. Well, President Zelenskyy already reacted on that. He praised this decision. Yeah, what else can he say? And after all, as I mentioned, it's better than nothing, because Kyiv is being under attack every day. President Zelenskyy welcomed a statement by President Trump on the possibility of providing security for Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities during the extreme winter period. He noted that Ukrainian and United States teams discussed the issue during talks in the United Arab Emirates and said Kyiv expects the agreements to be implemented. What kind of the agreements? Because before no one told about this so-called energy ceasefire. They mentioned it, but nothing was agreed, absolutely. And just abruptly, here we have it. Negotiations between Trump and Putin, and there is the energy ceasefire from the Russian side. It seems like no one pushed Ukraine for anything. And I also monitor Russian channels and Russian media. There is no information coming about this temporary ceasefire from their side, so only Trump says about it, and Zelenskyy praised Trump for this some sort of the temporary agreement for 1 week, but Russian representatives have so far not commented on the week-long energy truce and alleged agreement to it. Knowing Trump, maybe they just spoke with Putin, and Donald Trump, maybe it was a wrong translation as it happened before already, and Donald Trump said, Putin is ready, he will not strike Kyiv. But what could happen if Putin strikes Ukraine right now? Then Donald Trump says that he shouldn't strike Ukraine, because no comments, absolutely nothing. Kremlin spokesman Peskov was asked directly about this energy ceasefire, but he left the question without any sort of the comment. And Russian Z channels, they're asking, so what we'll have in return? If we stop targeting main Ukrainian energy facilities, will Ukraine do the same? But Ukraine didn't know about this negotiation, No one spoke with Zelenskyy. But I think if Donald Trump calls Zelenskyy now and asks him not to strike Russia for a week, I think Zelenskyy would absolutely agree on that, knowing that Russia probably will not attack Ukrainian energy infrastructure. And I just hope that it could be expanded for more than just 1 week. We'll see, but initially, this deal is more or less okay, especially then Ukraine is not pushed to do the same stuff as Russia, at least right now, for the hour I am recording this video. So we'll see, of course. It's very, very interesting. And what would Russia do if Ukraine continued those strikes on Russian infrastructure? Should it be a goodwill of Ukraine not to continue those strikes on Russian energy? Yeah, the Russian Z channels, they're crazy about it. They're screaming about the possible betrayal, because they were very close to switch off Kyiv completely. Well, it's not possible to switch the city with lots of the diesel and benzene generators. But of course, they already harmed the Ukrainian civilians. It has never been like that since the start of the war. And there is no heating, nothing, no water even, and just sometimes you have electricity. So Russians are telling we were very close to terrorize them completely, to put them to the Stone Age. But Ukrainians, they're not protesting against Zelenskyy or Ukrainian government. They just have more and more hatred towards Russia because of the Russian strikes. They see the real enemies. So what does Russia want to achieve with those strikes? And why do they invest so much money into the drone production, those missiles and everything? It costs millions and billions of everything. And they continue to strike Ukrainian energy. For what? For Ukrainians to hate them more? Well, with that, they're very, very successful. I'm just listening this address of Zelenskyy to Ukrainian people. Well, he says that we're gonna see for this week or maybe the next one already, for the next 7 days of what we should expect from Russia. So yeah, it looks like Ukrainian side absolutely was not aware about those negotiations between Trump and Putin. It is a mess, guys. Those negotiations, everything, no coordination. Trump just thinks that he is the boss, he might call and resolve everything. That was his promise, then he was elected, and even before, during the election campaign, he promised 24 hours. I'm just gonna call Putin, I'm just gonna call Zelenskyy, and that's it. It's a very easy thing to settle. But in reality, it's not like that. And sadly, but those strikes of Russia on Ukraine, against Ukraine, will continue. And no one says even close about some sort of the truce, ceasefire on the front lines. We're still very far, guys, very, very far. But the sign is good, I agree. Putin, do not launch your missiles, do not launch your rockets. And Putin agreed on that. So in a way, Trump has this authority, because Putin understands that Trump may take one more tanker of the Shadow Fleet somewhere, or more sanctions on the Russian companies could be applied, as Donald Trump did already, applying those on Rosneft and Lukoil, not because Trump doesn't like Putin, but because he wants to eliminate competitor. And this war in Ukraine, and remember how he pressed India, for example. Oh, you financed the war in Ukraine, stop purchasing Russian oil. Yes, after the sanctions, India lowered the purchases of the Russian oil. Instead, they get more of the Middle East oil from the countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and also they purchase more American oil. That's the main thing for Donald Trump, because he's been sponsored by those companies, oil companies as well. And maybe Venezuela was one of those variants for Donald Trump, just to get more oil. Not maybe, but he said about it himself that I need oil. We need oil, lots of the oil. But Venezuela appears not a good variant for Donald Trump after all. They took Maduro, but what is next, Donny? What is next? You cannot resolve even the issues in your Western hemisphere. What's about Putin? How you want to force him to ceasefire completely, or at least long-term energy ceasefire? I don't think it's possible without really pressing Russia, really pressing Putin personally and his companies, his circle, and Russia in general. And Russia has been pressed a lot, not just by Ukraine with kinetic sanctions, but also by United States of America in the Caribbean Sea, those oil tankers, and also by France. Just recently, France captured one of the Russian oil tankers, and the Europeans, many of the countries, they came out with initiative, or at least statement, that they gonna check out all of the Russian shadow oil fleet tankers, and if they proceed through Baltic Sea without any sort of the legal documentation, they're gonna be captured as well, detained, let's say, arrested together with the crew. So there's the pressing on Russia happening from even Europeans. I'm quite surprised that it is happening, but it is happening, not just from Ukraine. Well, Ukraine presses Russia the most with those drone strikes, missiles, and on the front lines, actually. Russia really suffers, and Putin is interested to show to Donald Trump that he really wants to achieve the peace. Then, in fact, he doesn't want to achieve the peace. You see, it's a very thin line between love and hate, so Donny may implement more sanctions, or Donny may even release the sanctions. Depends on Donny's mood and depends on Putin's actions. But in general, Putin did so many mistakes, especially the last year, that he didn't agree on complete ceasefire and finally stopping the war, occupying all of those territories. He continued the war, and hundreds of thousands of Russians have died for the last year, and will die more, because Russia has the plans to increase its army group in Ukraine by 400,000 people, 409,000 to be more precise. Basically, they take people as volunteers. Russians live in poverty and they sign the contracts with the Russian army. That's crazy, but it is happening. Still, less than before this year, but it is happening. But it cannot continue like that for a long time, so Putin will have to announce mobilization if he wants to continue with the present scale. I mean, the battle on the front lines, and we see that Russia definitely bogged down. The weather plays the great role, but Russia might prepare some of the large offensive for 2026. Late spring or summertime, we're gonna see it. But for everything of that, Russia needs oil money. Money from oil. The budget was planned for $59, but they sell for 36. Come on, you need to do something, Russia. And your tankers are being seized, Russians. So basically, that is why Putin agrees on some of the proposals of Donald Trump. By the way, Rubio stated that dispute around territories, that's the only main question left between Ukraine and Russia for the ceasefire or to end this war. But Ushakov, who is the main advisor of Putin relative to all of those foreign affairs, well, he stated that no, territory of Donbass is not the only question for us to ceasefire or to stop the war. Lavrov, I guess yesterday he commented territorial dispute of Donbass, saying that Russia will not be satisfied if the remaining of the Ukrainian territory, like Ukrainian controlled territory, will stay under the current Ukrainian regime. So they want to dismiss Zelenskyy, Ukrainian government, and they want to put their puppet one, and they still say about it. Our Western colleagues, partners, and Americans, most of all, they're blind. Donny is blind. He doesn't understand this thing. Yeah, our channels familiar with the topic, our military, they say now we need to be very careful with such statements from Donald Trump. We need to keep our gadgets charged and to be ready for the fact that there might be still strikes on Ukraine. Yep. Sometimes what Donald Trump says is not real. Sometimes what he proclaims is what he wants to achieve, but he says it as the fact. Some sort of the agreement, like what meeting? Remember the meeting, yeah, between Zelenskyy and Putin and Donald Trump. Back then, Trump said it like a fact that, oh, it will happen next week. Everyone was shocked, like, oh, really? But no, he just wanted it to happen so much that he thought that if he says it, Putin and Zelenskyy would agree, just because he tells that. So he's psycho. Thanks to Fico, Prime Minister of Slovakia, we know it. Fico said about it to his European colleagues, and it was leaked to the press. But later on, Fico said, no, I didn't say that. But what else can he say, yeah? No one wants to be this enemy with Donald Trump, right? Especially then you fucked up saying, what do you think about Donny really to your European colleagues? Of course. So yeah, hopefully it will be achieved, this ceasefire, especially from the Russian side, at least for 1 week. It would be relief for Ukrainians who are under the strikes, especially those who live in Kyiv without water, without heating, without electricity. And every freaking night, Russia launches their drones, Shahids, cruise missiles, everything, absolutely. And the best variant for it to prolong, to extend, not just in time, but to extend for the real truce on the front lines. That's the main goal, actually, of this war. We'll see, guys. I do not expect, as I told you, anything good with the current White House administration. They do not realize with whom they have this business. I mean, with Putin, he's a freaking murderer, demon devil, you might call him, I don't know. He's really a villain, but Donald Trump, he's not competent, he's a wannabe dictator, and he's just, buffoon, idiot. Why am I saying it right now that he really is successful in asking Putin not to strike Ukraine? Well, because there is no system. Today he asked Putin, tomorrow Putin will strike. Like, there should be no strikes at all from Russia, and Ukraine is just defending itself. Ukraine strikes back. So if Trump wants to achieve a real ceasefire, he should act differently. With the phone calls, it is not the way how you resolve those kind of the big wars, confrontations, and it's not possible. Like, this approach is dilettante. Well, guys, it was the main update about this very important topic I wanted to yap about, and tomorrow stand by for one more big video, as usual, with me in the studio and all of the reports, all of the news from the front lines. And not only, we have already something that happened this day and during the night, there will be more, absolutely. My friends, thank you so much for making my content possible with your kind support on Patreon and also membership. You may join it on YouTube or on Spotify. If you watch me on Spotify, there's the thing called subscription, so you may subscribe for the channel on Spotify. And on YouTube, also please subscribe and press like to boost the video in algorithms. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.